There is a place on Earth where the water refuses to let you sink, where fish cannot swim, where birds learn very quickly not to land. A lake so heavy, so saturated, so hostile, that scientists do not really call it a sea at all. They call it a terminal basin, a dead end, the lowest exposed point on the surface of the planet. And yet, for thousands of years, humans have been drawn to it, to float on its surface, to coat themselves in its mud, to drink from the empires it built. We treat the Dead Sea like a curiosity, a salty postcard, a strange swimming pool at the bottom of the world. But beneath that calm, oily surface, something else is happening. Something slower, stranger, and far more revealing than the tourist brochures admit. Because the Dead Sea is not simply dying, it is being drained. And the way it is disappearing is exposing a hidden machinery underneath the Middle East, one that almost no one talks about. To understand what is really happening, you have to forget the postcard for a moment. The Dead Sea sits at the bottom of a tear in the Earth's crust, a long, narrow scar where two tectonic plates are slowly pulling apart. The land between them keeps sinking. It has been sinking for millions of years, and rain, snowmelt, and the Jordan River have been pouring into that sinking trench for just as long, with nowhere to escape. No outlet, no river leading to an ocean. The only way water leaves the Dead Sea is by evaporating into the desert sky. Everything else stays behind. Every grain of salt, every mineral, every trace of whatever was dissolved upstream. For millennia, that slow concentration created a body of water almost 10 times saltier than the ocean. Dense enough to hold a human body like a cork. Toxic enough that almost nothing can live inside it. That is the surface story. The hidden story is about balance. For thousands of years, the Dead Sea existed in a quiet equilibrium. The Jordan River fed it from the north. The desert sun pulled water back into the air. What flowed in roughly matched what evaporated out. The lake stayed at a stable level. The salt stayed in solution. Civilizations rose and fell along its shores. Sodom, Masada, Qumran, and the sea barely noticed. It was a system that ran on patience, on the slow arithmetic of a river meeting a desert. And that arithmetic held, more or less, until the middle of the 20th century. Then the equation broke. The break did not come from climate. It came from plumbing. In the 1950s and 60s, the countries surrounding the Jordan River, Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, began doing what every modern nation does. They built pipelines, pumping stations, national water carriers, irrigation networks for crops that should not really grow in a desert. The Jordan River, the only major artery feeding the Dead Sea, was diverted, tapped, and sliced open along nearly its entire length. By the time what remains of the river finally reaches the lake, more than 90% of its historical flow is gone. In some seasons, what arrives is barely a trickle of agricultural runoff. The artery has been clamped, and the moment that happened, the Dead Sea began to lose. Today, the Dead Sea is dropping by more than a meter every single year. More than 3 feet. Year after year, decade after decade. The shoreline that tourists photographed in the 1970s is now hundreds of meters inland. Old beach hotels stand stranded, their staircases leading down to dry, cracked salt flats where the water used to be. Lifeguard towers sit in the middle of nothing. Roads built to follow the coast now overlook a silent, retreating cliff of mineral crust. If you stand on certain bluffs, you can see the old waterline carved into the rock above you, like a tide mark left by a vanished giant. But the falling water is not even the strangest part. The strangest part is what is happening underneath the ground. As the sea retreats, it leaves behind enormous layers of buried salt. Salt that was deposited over thousands of years when the lake was higher. That salt used to be sealed in place by the dense, briny water above it. Now, with the sea pulling back, fresh groundwater from the surrounding hills begins seeping into those abandoned salt layers. And fresh water dissolves salt very efficiently. Slowly, invisibly, the ground beneath the old shoreline turns into a honeycomb of hollow caverns, hidden voids, pockets of air where solid rock used to be. Until, one day, the surface above one of those voids cannot hold its own weight anymore, and it collapses. These are sinkholes, and along the shores of the Dead Sea they are not rare. They number in the thousands. New ones open every week. Some are the size of a dinner plate. Others swallow entire roads, palm groves, parking lots, buildings. They appear without warning. A farmer walks across his field, and the ground simply ends beneath him. A truck stops at a gas station, and the gas station is gone the next morning. Whole stretches of coastline have been declared too dangerous to enter. The earth is, very literally, opening up, because the water that used to hold it together is no longer there. The Dead Sea is not just shrinking on the map, it is hollowing out the land around it. And this is where the deeper mechanism becomes visible. Because the Dead Sea is not really being killed by heat, or by drought, or by some abstract force of nature. It is being killed by decisions, by taps and turbines and political borders drawn through a watershed that does not recognize them. The Jordan River, on paper, runs through several countries. In reality, it has been cut into pieces, each piece owned, allocated, rationed, sold. The water that should be replenishing the lowest point on Earth is instead growing tomatoes, filling swimming pools, and flowing through suburban kitchens hundreds of kilometers away. The Dead Sea is the downstream consequence of an upstream civilization that learned how to move water, but never learned how to stop. There is a second machinery too, quieter and almost surgical. Along the southern basin, vast industrial evaporation ponds extract potash, bromine, and magnesium from the brine. These minerals are valuable. They feed global agriculture and global manufacturing, but to harvest them, the industry pumps dead seawater into shallow pools and lets the sun finish the job. What evaporates from those ponds is water the lake never gets back. So the sea is being drained from the north by thirsty rivers and skimmed from the south by thirsty factories. Two hands working on the same patient, neither of them stopping. And yet, life still tries. In recent decades, scientists drilling into the deepest parts of the Dead Sea have found something unexpected: microscopic organisms. Strange, salt-tolerant bacteria and archaea clinging to existence in water that should sterilize anything that touches it. They live in freshwater springs that bubble up from the lake bed. They live inside crystals of salt. They survive by being smaller, simpler, and more patient than the chemistry trying to kill them. The Dead Sea, it turns out, is not actually dead. It is just a place where life has been compressed down to its most stubborn form. A reminder that biology is harder to extinguish than geology. But that is not a comfort. It is a warning. Because the Dead Sea is showing us, in slow motion, what happens when a civilization treats a closed system as if it were infinite. Every drop diverted upstream becomes a meter of shoreline lost. Every meter of shoreline lost becomes a sinkhole somewhere else. Every sinkhole is the Earth quietly admitting that the bargain has been broken. The lake is not collapsing because nature failed. It is collapsing because the human network around it grew faster than the water could replenish. So when you look at those famous photographs, the floating tourists, the pale blue surface, the white salt sculptures rising from the brine, understand what you are really seeing. Not a wonder of nature. A wound. A slow, visible accounting of choices made far away from its shore. The Dead Sea is not the place where life struggles to exist. It is the place where the cost of how we live finally becomes impossible to hide. And it is sinking, year by year, into the lowest silence on Earth.